Hi, everybody. Welcome to the How to Hero YouTube channel, where my name's Sean, and I'm here to help awaken the hero within you. There's a hero within all of us. I wanted to start today by saying that I'm doing one-on-one sessions with clients that need help with Ascension. I can do readings for them, but I can also do, whatever we need to do to help further along their path. Typically, I do it on a donation basis. I'll put the email to sign up for that in the description, and you can give me a shout if you're looking for one-on-one Ascension guidance, and I'll help you with that. Today we're going to talk about duality and sort of what's the purpose of duality. Why did we create duality into this holographic reality? Why is it there? The reason that it was created was so that creator could experience itself, right? So that's when creator originally fragmented into the components of the universe, which would be the planetary objects, right? The first and second and third density planetary objects that sort of come in, and galaxies and things like that. Those were the sort of initial entities that existed in the universe, and then conditions started to be created by the logos for life. In Earth, what makes the Earth unique is the forgetting process, the veil. Um, I'm not familiar with other places in the galaxy or in the universe that have this type of veiling. This is where we forget completely that we are multidimensional beings, that we are here to sort of uh, recognize our wholeness and come back to source. This is so it's a special place, it's a special experience, and it can seem quite traumatic. The third density consciousness experience is the shortest, but also the most catalytic. So it's the most sort of experiential stage of the evolutionary process of the soul. You could call it the soul, but the in the law of one, they would call it the mind body spirit complex. That's what we are, mind body spirit complexes. And so in our evolution, this is where we get the most experience. Our soul gets the most experience from us living this world of duality. But what we're actually looking to do now is get rid of duality. Now it's going to take some time, but and what happens when duality? So for me, I live in a space where duality is not. It's not forefront in my mind. I see creator in all things. So I see myself in everything. So even when I'm doing this now, talking to you guys, I feel just like I'm talking to myself. When I'm talking with my parents or when I'm petting an animal, I feel like I'm petting myself in many ways. And so that's a good place to be. Now, as you start to move into that space, you get very, very, very sensitive. And that's what the awakening is. Like, it starts to push you towards that place, and everybody goes at their perfect pace for them. But I just wanted to sort of explain duality and what's its purpose, because it helps us to frame the rest of what we're doing and helps us understand, like, why are we so drawn to this or that thing or person. And this will help you understand why you're so drawn to whoever it is or whatever it is, because essentially you're trying to find yourself. And the trick is that you're already whole, right? But the higher self will push you to find yourself in other ways. It's through looking elsewhere to find yourself, to realize that it's already here, right? It's a bit of a funny thing when you realize. And so even me saying these things, you'll probably cognitively grasp it, but a lot of people will have trouble with it, and then they'll that's okay. But eventually they'll get to a point. Oh, I remember that dude said I'm already whole, and that's why I can never be satisfied by this thing that's external to me. Uh, it's starting to make sense. So it takes some time for those seeds of wisdom or thought or whatever to blossom into understanding, comprehension. And even understanding is sort of a misnomer. You can't understand creation. It began and ends in mystery. So you can only go so far with your cognitive understanding. You have to eventually just open up the heart, and you'll feel it, and you'll get where I'm talking about. So after we forget that we're multidimensional beings, we're sort of like blank slates, right? We're little babies. We're not karmically attached to anything until around 18 months. But prior to that, we're just picking up like how to function, like what are things, where is there danger, what's going on, right? And then we at around 18 months we start to develop a concept of self, and a self in the environment. We start to understand that if we do this thing, it's going to hurt that person. We still may do it, right? Like this is where you see 2-year-olds like throw a toy at another 2-year-old and then just like watch them to see what happens, right? They do that, and these karmic things come back to them. They'll get a punishment of some kind. There's a cause and effect there. They get yelled at by their parents or things like that. And this is what starts the sort of social conditioning, the societal conditioning and programming that we receive from the society at large, our family, our peers, etc. And it also sets us up for the traumatic things that happen to us. And it doesn't have to be bad. Like it doesn't have to be a big traumatic thing. Trauma, when we're so innocent, right? The most minor thing can be very traumatic for us. And I'm sure everybody's witnessed a 3-year-old or 4-year-old or something just lose their mind because something didn't go their way. Like that's them creating trauma in themselves. They don't understand how to deal with their emotions, and so it spirals into this pit of sort of wounding, and you could call it a primal wounding. And then what that primal wounding does is whenever anything somewhat similar to that happens, it builds upon it, it festers that wound. And so it can be something simple like, your daughter coming up, or you being a child going up to your parents asking for, you want to dye your hair. Let's say you're like 6 years old, you want to dye your hair, and then telling you that you're not allowed to dye your hair, that's stupid, or something like that. Like that could really hurt your feelings, right? It's your hair. Why can't you dye your hair? And now they're taking from your sort of sovereignty. And what children understand without fully grasping it is that they are sovereign. They understand that that their life is theirs. But they have to listen to these people. And at first they're like, why do I have to listen to these people? But eventually they start to understand authority, right? And they start to realize there's a hierarchy here. Like I'm not in control of every aspect of myself. And this is part of the programming that gets put into them. And it's not done by the parents to make the children hurt. Like the parents are genuinely trying to look out for what's best in the children. And this is why they do what they do. They try to protect them. They try to keep them from harm. In that way, they enforce programming. So it's almost impossible, at this stage, to really not program your children. You're going to program your children, and they're gonna develop these types of things. And it's good for us to be aware of this process as parents, and also as people that grew up with parents, right? Or authorities. Even if we don't have parents, we have authorities. Typically we'll be in an orphanage, or we'll be somewhere and someone's telling us what to do, or we're living in an environment where we have to figure it out for ourselves, and that conditions us. So no matter what happens, we are going to be conditioned by our environment, because we just don't know. We don't know what's going on. So it's important to really remove the blame from other people, because the other thing is that we signed up for that. We picked our parents. We chose specifically this incarnation in order to have these particular experiences. It all is divinely orchestrated, and there is a plan. And when you get to a certain point, you start to be able to look back and understand cognitively, like, why I chose this, and this. You start to see the actual logic and the reasoning behind the choices as you start to heal them. And so, you don't have to take it from me. It's up to you. It's your experience. But I think what you'll find is after a time, you start to really grasp, okay, these people didn't do anything to me. It was my wounds that caused these various things. It was my issue. It was my decision in many ways. Consciously or unconsciously, it was my decision to participate. So after you receive programming, you experience some different traumatic events, you've now created what they'd call a shadow. And this is the aspects of self that you've rejected, the pieces of self that you believe are not acceptable, that you tuck away. So we all have a full, whole human persona in us, right? We have all the cards of the major arcana of the tarot within us. We're all whole, and we all are capable to do all these different things. But there are aspects of it that we tuck away. Like, so for me, the Hierophant was one that I often would tuck away. I have a tendency to get in trouble for trying to teach people, but like, I am here to teach. That is my particular role, is here to teach and learn, and then learn and teach. So I view each interaction with another human as an opportunity for me to learn from them, but also as an opportunity for me to perhaps teach them if they're open to it. And that's been my challenge. So um, once we start to realize that we're whole, that's great. But until that time, what we do is we tend to look externally. So because I always wanted to be a teacher and teach, I was looking at all these other spiritual teachers and being like, oh, they can show me how to teach. They can teach me how to teach, right? And so I would look to YouTube videos. I'd read all these books, and every time I'm reading them, I'm like, this hasn't really. It's taught me some stuff about the world. It's taught me some stuff about the world, but it doesn't help me to be a teacher. Because being a teacher, I just have to start teaching what I know, right? And it took me a while to get that. So that's just an example for me. But then what happens is we have these woundings of unworthiness, or these woundings of like people don't understand me, or we're not respected. People don't like to hear what I say, and that's where things get pretty complicated because we start to have relational type wounds where we have all this shadow, these fragments, but I put them behind us, right? They're tucked behind us. We're not typically totally aware of them until we begin to heal them. And then we start to have sort of romantic or friendships or relationships where we believe that that person has a piece of us or makes us whole, right? Us being with that person makes us whole. And so I made this horribly great picture here. Oh, there we go. Duality, right? So you can see that it's two people. I've got a male and a female just to represent divine feminine, divine masculine. Gender is not important. Both are looking for themselves, right? They're looking to find pieces of themselves, and they don't even really notice it. That's why when you find someone that you're just super attracted to, whether it's a friendship or a romantic thing, you're super attracted to them. You just want to be around them. You want to talk to them. You want to figure out everything about them, because you can sense your higher self is directing you towards this person because they have pieces of themselves that they are exposing to the world energetically that you seem to be lacking. And so instinctively, you're drawn to it like a moth to the flame. And both of you will feel this way if it's a sort of energetic match. And this is where that whole twin flame thing comes in, because people can be like, oh my God, right? They have everything that I've always wanted. And then they both feel that way, and they both get very comfortable with each other, and it's great. It's very beautiful. But there's a misunderstanding on what the relationship means and what's actually happening. And what's happening is each person is showing the other person aspects of themselves that they've rejected, right? And so each person really just has to look at these examples. Like, so for example, if your partner that you're looking at is very outgoing and courageous to you, and you feel kind of, like shy, like you can't be like that, that's an example of a shadow, right? Your shadow is that you're shy. Your shadow is that they're being courageous and you're shy. So, or you're less likely to speak your truth, and they're always speaking their truth, right? They're vocal and they don't give a shit, and that could be something too. And so that could actually bother you. It'll either go two ways. You'll either find a bit of an admiration, or you'll find it'll trigger you. You'll be like, why are they always talking they don't have to run their mouth all the time. But the other person is like, I run my mouth because that's what I do, right? And it's too bad. It's just too bad. And so they set up these situations with each other where they will just trigger each other with different ways. And these triggers are the most important thing. When somebody does something and you're talking with them, they do something and it bothers you. That's an indicator. Because remember that this is an illusion. Duality is not truly how the universe works. We're all one being expressing itself in multiple sort of holographic avatars, right? And so we literally are the other self, and it's not like a concept. Like, we are the other person, and when we start to see that, then it becomes a lot easier, because when they act in a way that we think is bad, we instead of having the lens on them and being like, oh, I wonder what they're doing, we end up turning the lens back on ourselves and going, why does this irk me so much? Why does their behavior cause me disharmony? And then we can heal that, because once we shine awareness on that, that's when it starts to deconstruct that program, that shadow starts to get healed, and we start to understand that it's actually a piece of myself that I'm rejecting. That's why I don't particularly like when they behave this way or that way, because my whole life I was told to keep quiet, or something like that. Or I would speak out and then I'd get, hit or something, right? It can be more dramatic, and it can be even very simple. So for me, when I was a kid, um, I would often talk out. I would always tell people when they were wrong, like teachers and stuff, and I would get in trouble all the time for it. And on the one hand, they would just say that they would say that I was gifted, right? Which wasn't really the case. What was the case was that I was saying things that the other kids weren't saying. They would, if you think back to when you're a kid, like a lot of times the adults would say things and you would just accept it because, the adult said so. So must be true. But for some reason, I didn't have that in me. So now when I'm out and about the world, I have to really watch myself, because I'll say stuff and without meaning to, I'll trigger people, because I'm attacking their core reality structure, like their core programming. I'm attacking it by accident. Like I don't mean to do it. So I've had to isolate and stuff. And I think that this is the whole purpose of this is to help us find ourselves again, right? But the trick is that we're not going to find ourselves in these external things. Like we're not going to be able to read books and find ourselves. What we'll find is hints in the external world. We'll find clues. That's the best way to look at it. So if, as we seek around, we look around and we'll find clues as to what we are not accepting in ourselves. And that goes with books, it goes with people, it goes with, just whatever you do. Eventually it gets to a point where the universe starts to speak to you, right? In every moment, because you are the universe, and you're like, wow. So like, for example, if I were to walk downstairs right now, I'm sure there'll be a song playing and the lyrics will speak to me in a way that's very personal, that I'm like, oh my gosh, how does the radio know exactly what song to play? Well, because the radio is me. The universe is me. It's playing this for me right now, right? And that's sort of where I got to. And I hold that frequency most of the day. I do have to be really careful about what I allow into my field, because things can throw me off still. And so I'm not trying to brag or anything like that. What I'm trying to display is that people, like I was never religious, or I was never spiritual really. I woke up and then I just went on a mission and I figured it out. I figured it out fairly quickly in comparison to a lot of people. But it still took me 34 years to come out of the illusion. But once you come out, you start to understand, oh, okay, actually all of this I can just manifest, and things start to just come to you that you've been desiring. Like people come and say things to you and you're like, oh yeah, that would be awesome. I've been thinking about that. Or for example, I was thinking about making a comic book, months ago. I think I even posted about it on Facebook or something, about how I was starting to write a comic book. And then this guy messages me out of nowhere, and he's actually made one already, and it's the more or less the exact thing that I was going to make. And things like that start to happen. You're like, wow, oh, it's almost like we're connected. Wow, it's almost like we're all one. Wow. And it starts to really just hit home. But it doesn't hit home until you recognize your sovereignty and your wholeness already. And when you start to really step into your sovereignty and your wholeness, you don't take a lot of shit from people, because you can see right through this manipulative programming, conditioning that they're trying to reapply to you. They try to reapply these things without even realizing it. They have no idea they're doing it, but they're trying to do things like change your mind about your own truth, so that you can again lose a piece of yourself, right? But because you've sort of become whole, you'll see that and you'll go, nuh-uh, get out of here. And it's pretty easy to do. I hope that helps explain duality, why it's here, what we do about it, what the goal is. The goal is to dissolve duality, to to understand how the holographic reality works. Now, it's not like I see things differently. I just have an awareness, a consistent awareness that that's me. That's me too. Oh, I'm that too, right? It's a consistent awareness. And if you can practice that, see creator in everything, see yourself in everything. And as you do that, it just builds this sort of more programming, right? It's another way of programming yourself, right? You can think of the human as like an organic robot in many ways. You don't want to be too tied to your human, because you want to be a little bit tied so that you can, live, but you don't want to be too tied, because it will distort sort of your mission. It'll distort things and your understanding of things. So I like to think of myself as sort of an organic robot that is here getting experience and having a good time and experiencing joy and harmony. And so as I walk about the day, like, I don't have a lot of things that cause me any disharmony anymore. Occasionally people will say things, or I might experience things, but most of it feels like, oh, this is a valuable lesson, because I don't typically get triggered. And so if I was triggered here, then there's something here that I've missed. This is juicy. It's juicy. That's what it feels like usually if I get triggered now. It's juicy. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you need any assistance in the email there. I'll leave it in the description. You can reach out to me for one-on-one Ascension Guidance. I also do readings, which I'll do an energy reading. I've said this so many times on the channel, but I really am gonna try and do daily videos. I'm sure you guys have that sort of energetic weirdness that happens with this sort of the energy from the cosmos that just comes in, and some days you just feel exhausted and stuff like that. The more and more you expand your awareness and consciousness, the more sensitive I became. And so those ebbs and flows really put me under sometimes. So I've always said I want to do daily videos. I'm going to try and do 1 or 2 a day. I want to eventually set up the community so that people can jump into a Discord group and get access to me directly there as well. And then I can have my schedule more managed that way, because there's going to be too many clients wanting one-on-one support for me to really handle it all. So yeah, so if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I always do my best to at least read everything. If you need one-on-one support, my email will be below. I hope you have an awesome day and an awesome year, and I look forward to seeing what you do with yourself after you recognize your wholeness and start to really get into gear. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. I love you, and take care.